Alexander Neff asked me because he knew that I directed La Juive from À la Vie, and I'd had experience with Grand Opéra, and of course La Vestale is like the proto-Grand Opéra. I know that Bertrand de Billy, the conductor, was extremely interested in this material. It is a musical connection between Christoph Willibald Gluck and the later romantic Grand Opéra of Meyerbeer and À la Vie and Berlioz. Also Wagner was a great admirer of Spontini. So I think the original idea to do this piece was largely musical, and I'm really delighted to have been invited to put the storytelling universe on top of this incredible music. We find ourselves in Rome. Roman general Licinius comes back from his victories only to find out that his beloved has been taken into the order of the Vestal Virgins. And this causes him a lot of distress because he had hoped to come back and marry her, and now she's unavailable. Eventually, he and Julia, the Vestal Virgin, find each other again, confess each other's love for one another, and at this moment of this confession of the love, the eternal fire of Vesta goes out. Julia had been entrusted to protect this fire, and because it goes out, she is condemned to death by being buried alive for her negligence and for her trespass with Licinius. And at the moment that she's meant to be buried alive, Licinius comes back in order to save him. She claims not to know him. Basically, at the moment that she is meant to be executed for her treason, essentially, the flame miraculously lights again. Lightning comes, the gods speak, the fire lights itself magnificently again, and she is allowed to unite with Licinius, and there's a happy ending. What joy that freedom affords them is perhaps not absolute. There might be a question mark at the end as to whether or not freedom from this society is a blessing or not. One could identify it under sort of like a dystopian aesthetic. We are depicting a version of now. We're depicting a version of actually France currently. We've taken architecture that we hope is actually quite recognizable to a French audience. We've actually taken the amphitheatre of the Sorbonne as sort of the basis, and what happens when this institution of learning and knowledge and these famous halls where so many people have learned and studied and created an intellectual richness, what happens if that is destroyed? What happens if that is the setting for an autocratic, theocratic system? Like, what happens when the middle falls out and all we have is violence or God? It was actually because of Napoleon's largesse that Spontini, that at that time was sort of a struggling composer, he was allowed to sort of create this great hit on a stage in Paris because of his allowing it, his championing his cause. And it's interesting because obviously this piece was composed to celebrate Napoleon's victories in war. And we see that now through our eyes, what it means to sort of have an absolute military ruler celebrated in this manner. It sounds very different to us now, especially in the current geopolitical moment. We intend to perform the ballets. We won't have ballet dancers doing sort of traditional ballet as one might expect it, but the music of the ballet will largely remain in the piece. It's a challenge, but also the great sort of deliciousness of this material. My first work with Else van der Heever was as Salome here at the Opéra de Paris, and immediately I thought she was one of the most intense, intelligent performers I've ever worked with. I mean, obviously a spectacular singer, that goes without saying, but also one of the most measured and astute performers that I've ever seen on the stage. It's with complete delight that I look at this work for next season and creating the role of Julia with Else. There are moments where I think you see into the future with this music. Like, there's really wild programmatic bits, the fury of the heavens you can hear, these strange offstage choruses, the rage of these big masses of people. He, I think, really foretold opera, using opera with much larger forces. You sort of see the seeds of a much richer, denser, more enormous form of theater, and it's wonderful to catch that in such a nascent form. It has almost like Mozart-y bits, like it sort of reaches for the past as well as like predicts the future, and it's tremendously engaging.